Hey everyone, welcome back to your Dawn of Autonomy podcast. I'm Dawn Zola, your host, CEO of P3 Tech Consulting and publisher at Autonomy Global. We are in a month that we've dedicated to this theme of security, sponsored by Echodyne. And we have the absolute pleasure today of having with us an organization you may have seen around, but you may not know a lot about, called CNA, the Center for Naval Analyses. And we have Dr. Marina Rozenblat with us today to talk about all the things they're doing in the drone and advanced air mobility and autonomy and security space. So it's great to have you on the show, Marina.
Thank you so much, Don. It's so exciting to be here.
And you have an incredible background. For those that don't know you, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Marina Rozenblat, and I'm the Chief Scientist for our Center for Data Management and Analytics at CNA. I started my career in biomedical materials research, looking for ways that technology could really improve our lives. And right out of graduate school, I came across CNA, where they solved a diverse set of problems that impacted our nation's safety and security, where you really needed to think about critically and outside the box. That seemed really exciting and a positive mission. So I dove right in. Uh, and the field was very different than I expected. I began working on projects modernizing information systems in our national airspace system. I've worked with aeronautical information, traffic flow management, and then I got into the world of drones. And the first question that the FAA asked our team was how to ensure that the cybersecurity of the information that needs to be exchanged for UAS traffic management was secure. And so our research into cybersecurity continued and expanded into different ecosystems. We also tackled other challenging problems, looking at engagement with public safety drone operators and data management questions that they had. We developed concepts for the use of AI and machine learning in aviation, and we've managed data governance for those information exchange models. Throughout, the approach and the goals really remain the same. We want to use a consistent approach when defining our strategies for the future ecosystems. We want to make sure we're using standards and industry accepted best practices whenever possible. The goal is to ensure interoperability and harmonization where it's needed and improve the safety and security of our nation.
So it's really interesting, Marina, because people think of CNA, right, the name of your organization, and it is an FFRDC, a federally funded research and development center. People think Navy. So let's tell me a little bit about CNA, because clearly you work with the FAA and other
Right.
federal agencies as well. But let's talk a little bit about what CNA is, and then we have a really cool video that kind of encapsulates your mission a little bit. So give us the 30-second elevator pitch on CNA, and then we'll roll tape.
Absolutely. Yeah, CNA actually got started in World War II, where the US Navy needed some help in how to make their operations more effective. And so they brought in a group of scientists to work directly on the Navy aircraft carriers, analyzing strategies and providing data-driven operations. This was really unique at the time to bring analysts directly to the problem, and the collaboration was so successful that it led to CNA as an organization. Since then, we've really grown and expanded our expertise. So now we work with a variety of federal, state, and local governments. We work with other international organizations and partners. And beyond our FFRDC with the Navy, we work with other DoD clients as well. And in our Institute for Public Research, where I work, we work with clients across aviation, transportation, healthcare, justice, and others. And we really tackle kind of issues related to operational efficiency, data management and integration of information systems, strategic planning for programs and policy as well. And my team's focus has really been with the FAA, like I mentioned, as well as NASA, defining ways that UAS can operate, how they interconnect, and how we can really make these interactions secure.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and roll this really cool video.
Uncrewed aircraft systems, also known as UAS, are flying into our future, darting across the skies, delivering pizza to your front door, or perhaps transporting you and your family to a weekend getaway. To make this a reality, the FAA and NASA are developing a new approach to managing uncrewed aircraft. As As a result, small commercial UAS and larger people-carrying UAS could soon be approved, but unaddressed security risks could prevent these flights from ever launching. To ensure the UAS environment takes off, CNA experts applied the NIST cybersecurity framework to systematically identify more than 100 key research areas for future UAS operations. Our research considers a range of critical cybersecurity issues related to stakeholders, vehicles, infrastructure, supporting information systems, and their governance. With feedback from NASA, we identified a wide range of threats, such as debilitating ransomware, dangerous denial of service, and costly data breaches. With over 75 years of experience, CNA will help you discover safe and secure solutions for the future. To learn more about cybersecurity and UAS, visit cna.org/DMA. CNA, dedicated to the safety and security of the nation.
All right, that was so awesome. All right, so I want to be clear just so everybody else is clear out there. So when you think about CNA, right, there's this term think tank. Does that kind of encapsulate in part what you guys do?
So CNA is actually not a think tank. We
Okay.
are just a research organization working with interdisciplinary teams. And our focus is really to provide unique, independent and objective analysis with this toughest security and defense problems. We're a not-for-profit organization, so we really want to focus on objective research, and we're committed to the public interest and our client's mission. One thing that's really unique is that we reinvest in our own research and development every year. We have internal research projects where staff are able to propose different topics that they think are valuable, and those are selected based on the potential impact. So recently, one example is I worked with digital twins, and I was coming up with understanding, what is a digital twin? Like, you hear this term a lot, but
Right.
it's really hard to
Almost like
understand what
AI, right? Like everybody says it and it like means different things to different people. So
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Marina, like digital twins in what context?
Yeah, so we've been looking at, how do you define what a true digital twin is? There's some things that are simulations and some things that actually provide an automatic feedback mechanism to the system that is trying to replicate. And this can provide a lot of great benefits, but it can also come with a lot of risks and costs associated with creating that digital twin. So we're trying to come up with a process with how to think about whether the application that you want to select the twin for is right. Like, is this really going to benefit and be worth the costs and the risks? In the past, we've also worked with public safety organizations coming up with an integrated UAS ConOps. This is where a jurisdiction can come together and talk about what kind of coordination do they need to do ahead of a disaster response. Every jurisdiction really has situations where they need to all come together and respond to some sort of incident. And we need to make sure that we know all the stakeholders that are impacted, who needs to know when, and how are they going to get that data. So it actually boils down to a data management problem. And so we've created a template that we can pose to these jurisdictions so that they can ask themselves the right questions and put things together in a way that will help them in their next response. And so these are kind of examples of internal research that we actually, have funded ourselves with CNA. And we recently showcased this at an event at CNA called CNA I Squared Innovation Incubator. And we actually brought in some of our clients to talk about our internal research and about things that they've never seen before.
That's really cool that you guys, well, you have obviously that natural curiosity and you love the mission. The some of these clients you're talking about, I know we already mentioned like the FAA, we mentioned NASA. In the video, I saw NIST or NIST.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit more, or just elaborate a little bit more about some of the clients, of course, Navy, other DoD people, that come to you and like the type of problems they're looking for you guys to help them solve? Like the UTM one, I think we're going to talk about a little bit more,
Yeah.
but maybe just kind of a broad brush overview.
Absolutely. Yeah. So with, as an example with UTM, there's a question of information that is going to be shared among all the different stakeholders, right? And this is a great collaboration between industry, between government, public safety operators, commercial operators, and they're all coming together to discuss the way that they're going to exchange information. And so they've come up with standards, which is really great. We want to make sure that everyone understands the way that they'll get that information. One thing that we've considered is when that data does need to come to the FAA side, are we meeting federal standards for security? And are we sure that this network is going to really meet the level of trust? And in this new industry, we really need the public to be sure about, okay, that drone that's flying over my backyard, that is who they say they are. That is actually a package delivery, and it's not somebody that's spying on me. So we need to make sure that all the information is trustworthy. We have data integrity. We have verified who's sending that information. And so these are the kind of research topics that we tackle. And with other agencies, we tackle questions about how do you respond to different incidents? How do you create future ecosystems? So with NASA, we've worked on future ecosystems with urban air mobility, and so thinking further ahead, how do we plan? You know, we don't even really know what this is going to look like, but what are the things that are important to us when we design these future systems?
Yeah, no, that's great. And by the way, the comments are rolling in. Some of our super fans out there, Mark Ganung from Nevada, he's actually with the Nevada test site out in Reno, and Greg Larson from the Augusta Regional Airport. Actually, we're hearing, right, Nevada, Georgia, we're hearing the states. You know, are groups like Mark's or, you know, Greg's groups that could actually present problems for you to help them solve as well? In other words, are you limited to the federal government, or who else like is your potential client pool, if you will?
Absolutely. Yeah, we absolutely work with state and local governments as well. We have a lot of really interesting questions in the justice field surrounding local response to incidents, the way that they approach, law enforcement, public safety, and we're very interested in how these concepts, especially with UAS, the way that they use UAS locally, the way that they might use UTM in the future, UAS traffic management. How is this going to benefit them, and what considerations are important at the state and local level? It's not just a federal issue. We want to make sure that all the stakeholders have a voice and have benefit, and have we considered within their needs, right? In things like data management and with the very complex regulatory and policy landscape, have we considered all the stakeholders? And this also includes, airports and commercial entities as well. We do have to consider everybody in the conversation.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is an ecosystem, and you really can't leave any particular stakeholder away from a conversation at a table because it will ultimately impact them, right? So that's really key. This is Security Month, and Marina, you raised a whole host of issues just in some of your answers, and I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking as we go. You raised some like physical security and privacy concerns, right? In terms of what is or who is that drone out there. You raised, of course, cybersecurity, which is such a critical component of these essentially flying robotic computers. And what does that look like? And then, of course, the systems that they interact with, right? That network, as well as the humans in the loop, at least for now, because, you've been working in this space for a long time. I mean, one of the biggest vulnerabilities in any system in terms of an IT system is generally the humans, you get a hold of one of them from an insider threat perspective, or somebody that's disgruntled, and then all of a sudden, what is happening there? So really really interesting issues. And Marina, we've been talking about these things, not just on this show this month, but like on our full crew, right? We had your colleague on last in May for AI month for our full crew newscast. And then we had a cyber month. And, these issues with AI and cybersecurity, they are considerable. They are increasing and enduring. And so as you think about UAS operations, let's focus on those for now, just like the drone operations. We'll put UTM, UAM, all these other three-letter acronyms aside for a minute. What would you say are some of the most pressing security concerns in terms of UAS operations?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that UAS are very unique, right? In that they are tiny little computers flying around.
Yep.
And they're vulnerable to hacking, and they're vulnerable to the supply chain, right? We have a very large number of different manufacturers, and you can just go to the store and buy a drone, right? Right off the
Sure.
shelf. You
Yep.
can just throw it right up and operate it. And so that makes us vulnerable, I think, from the very start, right? From the start of the ecosystem where we have the physical drone itself and the components and the software that are on it, as well as things like when you use it right out of the box, you actually have some default settings on that drone that are the same everywhere, with every drone that's sold. So that makes you very vulnerable to hacking. And uh, so we want to think about these things, and then you're going to connect to different networks, and you're also going to be flying around in the vicinity of other components, right? Like you're going to be near critical infrastructure, you're going to be near airports, communication, navigation, surveillance systems. So you could have an impact on those networks as well. So there's really a lot to think about and to mitigate as we especially are seeing things get more complex, right? As we get more and more beyond visual line of sight operations, we get more different sizes of aircraft. This is all going to be really, really important to mitigate in the future.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's really cracked the nut, to be honest with you. And we always look to the DoD, right? The Department of Defense, and what's happening in the military is possibly a template for commercial use and vice versa. There's such a synergy there. But, because the things we're seeing on the battlefield, let's just take the Russo-Ukraine war as an example, right? We're seeing a lot of electronic warfare. We're seeing GPS jamming. We're seeing FPV, very small first-person view drones, and now using fiber optic cables, right? We're seeing dark drones that don't emit RF. I mean, so many issues out there, and some of them do translate, right? There is absolutely GPS jamming that happens every single day in the United States and around the world, not near a battlefield. And so to kind of address that, and also, like you said, the other cybersecurity issues. I mean, these are very tough problems to solve. And it's great that your team is on it. But let's talk about UAS traffic management, UTM. Because, as you think about kind of a system of systems, you've got all these little flying robot computers flying around, and they're connected to, this network, this UTM, UAS traffic management system. What would you say are some of the security issues relevant to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So something that's really interesting is that we're going to be transitioning away from the way we do traditional aviation, right? They have dedicated secure networks for traditional aviation. And with UAS traffic management, UTM, we're going to be having UAS service suppliers that are commercial entities communicating over the public internet. So this makes us definitely vulnerable to a lot of different risks. And if anyone's unaware, so UTM is a holistic framework for the management of drones operating at low altitudes. There's going to be a number of interoperable services that enable beyond visual line of sight operations. And so this is an information exchange over APIs and the public internet. And so we're really concerned about maintaining data integrity, making sure that we know who the party on the other end is, who are they, who they say they are, as well as are they even authorized to send you that data? There also could be some concerns about some of the central components and a what we call denial of service. So this would be where an unauthorized party starts sending tons and tons of messages, which actually can bog down the whole system and stop it so that no one else can fly. So a lot of these things we need to think about really now, as ETM is really getting going now. And we want to think about careful system design and make sure that we're using really consistent messaging standards. We're using, industry best practices for communications and thinking about maybe some additional security that we could add on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack. And by the way, everybody, of course, we are live and we have an incredible expert here. So to the extent that you have questions about this, please drop them in the chat. We'll try to get to them. We love to hear from you, not just where you're from, but kind of what's on your mind and what you want to hear about. But let's, I want to talk about UCATs. So this is because we're talking about UTM, and you guys put together this UAS Cooperative Airspace Traffic Simulation Tool, or UCATS. And by the way, everybody, I did work with CNA to publish an article about this on Autonomy Global. So Dr. Rebecca Yang authored that piece, and you can find that on AG. So check that out. But Tell everybody about this particular project and what its goal was.
Yes. Yeah. UCATS is a really great tool that was developed by CNA, and it addresses a future problem that we think we're going to see. As we're scaling and growing the number of drones with, operations beyond visual line of sight in the NAS, right now, we don't really know what is the capacity of our airspace. Where are we going to hit a congestion point? Because the operations that are happening now are really kind of local, and we're not hitting any point where someone is not able to fly when they want to. So we created this UCATS tool to explore this question, and we went about it from kind of a starting point. Let's look at flight planning and how it can be optimized for really like a very starting scenario. We have package and food delivery in an urban environment. And so we want to explore the challenges of managing airspace congestion as we surge the number of deliveries. How can we optimize delivery efficiency while ensuring safety and maintaining the rules of the ecosystem? So this tool really allows policy and decision makers to evaluate how deconfliction and prioritization is done for high density operations. And you can test out the impacts of these rules for airspace flows and to see really how do these delays stack up later in the day. And for public safety agencies, you could use this to plan the way that they would initiate their high priority operations when they're facing a congested airspace. And service suppliers could also use it to consider how they might adjust their flight planning in the future as we start to see a growth in scale.
So this is basically a simulation, right? That you can put all kinds of data into in terms of parameters, run the model, and then it will spit out. That's a technical term, right? It'll it'll spit out like, all right, here's kind of some lessons learned. Here's what we're seeing here. Really cool for planning. I guess my question is, and everybody, again, I encourage you to go to Autonomy Global, find that article. It's really great stuff. Maybe we can drop that link as well, or put it in the description YouTube later. But can you operationalize that? In other words, you can use it to plan, but say, I don't know, hypothetically, I'm Walmart and, I'm going to have ubiquitous drone deliveries as part of my fleet. In this local neighborhood. Is this something that you could commercialize, Marina? Do you guys even do that? And so a company could maybe purchase it, or you could transfer that technology that they can then incorporate it into their other processes to use it on a daily basis?
That's a great question.
I'm off script now, and I'm just I'm going with kind of my background in technology transfer, working with the Air Force Academy. There's a lot of great research that happens in academia, in nonprofits and FFRDCs, and the question is, can you transfer that out? Can that be commercialized?
I think we're happy to talk with anyone who has an interest in about what their use case is. And I think would probably defer the question of commercialization maybe until we understand kind of what, it does the use case meet what what UCATs can do. And
Yeah,
really but it is right now it actually is able to be integrated with a UAS service supplier that is planning operations. So that's something that we're doing right now is so it's actually, just to take a step back, it's an agent-based model that simulates the flight planning process. And we treat each UAS as a self-acting agent. So it's like a game piece that moves independently.
right.
As you can ingest flight plans from a service supplier, and the tool will then schedule them, trying to resolve each conflict based on a first filed, first served approach. And so the output is that individual flight is either operated as scheduled, it's delayed, or it's canceled. And one example is, so flights from a package distribution center, they'll go out in all different directions at different times of the day. The model will find conflicts, and it might delay a flight by a few minutes or longer. And we continue this process over the course of the day. We can plan many flights, many different starting and ending locations, different operator types, different constraints on those operations. We can also include restrictions and priority events, saying, okay, we have to work around this restriction or this priority. So we can see how delays cascade if you introduce different elements to it.
Yeah, no, that's key.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you a question. Some of these other parameters, I'm channeling now my buddy Don Bershaw from True Weather Solutions. Weather's always an issue.
Yes.
Can it ingest, or can you input weather sensor data from a local area, as an example?
So that's not something that we've done yet, but I think that's something we can consider because we can introduce a kind of an airspace restriction. I think if we can treat weather as airspace, right, that needs to be avoided if there's a storm, for example, then
Yeah.
I feel like that we likely could introduce that as well. That's a great idea. I don't think anyone's brought that up as
Well, there you go.
as
You
an
heard it
element.
here first. Coming up with the
That's
great
great.
ideas for
Yeah.
CNA. But,
Yeah. I mean, that's something
I mean,
actually I
it's,
wanted to, oh, sorry.
yeah, I was going to say it's a real world concern, right? Like we see this just even in general aviation, getting on, your commercial flight to wherever you're going, where weather can be delaying things, and the low altitude, I think, is an even bigger challenge. So I'll introduce you and Don offline. You guys can think through this, but I'll tell you, Marina, the public safety piece of this is huge. Because I don't know if you've been down to the Dallas Fort Worth Key site where they're doing that operational evaluation. As you said, they're deconflicting amongst themselves, and they figured out a great process, just industry working together. But the key thing that I took away when I went down there during GUTMA, the Global UTM Association's Harmonized Skies events back in November, was this prioritization issue for public safety. Like if there's a real emergency and this drone, like DFR, right? Drones first responders got to go. It's got to go now. And there's like a pizza en route, with whoever. How does that work? I don't know that that's been completely, when there's maybe 5 drones in the air, probably easy. But like you said, when it's ubiquitous, when there's like a lot of traffic, now how is that working? This is where I think this value that you're bringing to the table is tremendous. So thank you for what you're doing. At the end of the day, after your UCATs, and you've done multiple demonstrations of this, you see how it works. Are there takeaways like that the industry, as they're looking at their own operations, they're looking at UTM, they're looking at, hey, we want to have scalable, beyond visual line of sight operations in a regular way. Are there takeaways from some of these sims and the models that you've run that you can tell people right now, here's some things y'all need to be thinking about, like today?
Yeah, so I think we're still actually in the process of doing some more testing and doing some really cool flight testing right now with the FAA and our partners with ATA Aviation and the Alaska Center for UAS Integration Test Site.
Cool.
So we're actually testing some scenarios, and we are processing and deconflicting real flight plans from the service supplier and seeing how they impact live operations. So I hope that at the end of the summer we'll have some really good examples and lessons learned for you. I know that from some of our initial research, we did see a lot of similar trends to, the way that in traditional aviation, it's recommended to really take that early morning flight because, that's
Before
going
it
to
all
be
starts stacking up.
exactly before it starts stacking up. And I think that it seems like that's similar in this kind of agent-based scenario where as you're flooding the system with more demand, the delays do propagate over time. So that's something I guess to consider. But I hope.
So order your coffee by drone,
Yes.
and maybe not that like 6 p.m. pizza,
Yes.
possibly. Yeah, it just depends. Yeah. So no, that is a great point actually, and it's interesting that you see similar trends in drone traffic that you kind of can draw parallel to commercial, general aviation traffic, and at least from those initial sims that you've run. So makes sense, but really cool that you guys are exploring this. So looking forward to hearing more news about UCATS and some of these awesome trials you're doing with the Alaska team. We love them, the Aquasi folks up there.
Oh, it looks like actually we lost Donna. I thought it was me. Well, I guess in the meantime, we're going to talk about some future challenges that we were going to. So I guess we've already kind of talked about scaling operations, but I did want to, something that I was going to, oh, Donnie Beck.
Yeah, that's so weird. Okay, so it's live when you lose me, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I technology is great when it works, and I'm glad I didn't get completely kicked out. I was just texting Mike, our producer. So I'm sorry. I was asking about public safety and yeah, some of those future challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I already mentioned some of the challenges we've seen with, planning ahead for public safety and kind of they have day-to-day operations that they need to schedule as well as planning ahead for disaster response. Um, but some of the other questions we have around, the vehicles that they're going to be using. So we have some research that we actually have already completed where taking that drone out of the box, you might have you'll have some default settings. And in this public safety space, they're going to want to take a drone and they might have a need for a lot of new drones. If one's gotten out, we have an urgent safety search and rescue mission. We want to get that up. And so those default settings are actually really easy for a bad actor to take advantage of. And so in collaboration with our with FAA and our technology partner Reese and the New York test site, we tested a tool that actually checks these settings in the drone and will actually automatically update the default settings in order to secure it. And we did some live flights that tested that a hacker was able to take control with those default settings, and then after the tool made the change, they were able to continue their mission. So that's kind of one
Wow.
of our public safety research areas as well.
Yeah, when you say Reese, RIIS, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I was just talking to Godfrey Nolan the other day. So yes, that's really cool that you're working with them. They've done so much, honestly. This is a group that is out there doing things in the background. People know by word of mouth, but like some of the things they do, like what you just said, most people don't even know. So that's really cool. We just gave them a plug. But we have a great question from Mark, and we'll see if you can answer it, Marina. Are you doing any work on counter UAS? This is a huge issue right now. Or Golden Dome. Now, Golden Dome is more like space-based. It's more like kind of ubiquitous, like defense from big things like missiles. But if you can talk about any of those, that's kind of an area of interest people want to hear about.
That's definitely an area of interest for me as well. So the counter UAS question is really interesting, and I guess the perspective that I've been thinking about it with, we don't have any published work per se to talk about, but I've been really interested in how state and local public safety are going to deal with a potential counter UAS situation where they don't have the capabilities that are given to them from a regulatory perspective to pursue a drone that they think is malicious. So we've been thinking about this question, and if there's ideally there would be some policy that could enable some sort of like working with the agencies that do have counter UAS capabilities, but maybe there's an information sharing that could be done with adjacent agencies. Just thinking about it from that perspective of like, if somebody has some capability, maybe we can extend if we know something on a DoD base, for example, if the nearby jurisdiction might have some insight from, like their DJI operations, maybe they can share information at least. So it's an interesting question that I'm not sure we have we don't have a solution for that, but
yeah, well, look, people are talking about it. We had 2 Trump executive orders come out in the last week. One did address counter UAS. By the way, everybody, if you're not familiar with those, you need to go read them. I just actually authored 2 op-eds, one for Duke's Lawfire blog about constitutional issues that are being raised in terms of counter UAS, even for the feds. And then the second one was more like, hey, guess what, guys? These executive orders don't actually give authorities to state, local, tribal, territorial, like to your point, Marina. But as you think about how to do it, I give my list of recommendations based on my experience working with DoD policy and law enforcement on some best practices, practices that could be incorporated into legislation and or local policies. So I encourage everybody to read those. I'd love to hear feedback on them. But yeah, this is a really big issue. One of the things in the order as example, Marina, was, JTTFs, Joint Task Force offices, where you have your SLTT law enforcement working with the FBI and kind of leveraging maybe some of those authorities in terms of counter UAS. But you're exactly right. How, as a practical matter, do you do it? So I don't think any of those things are solved, and I love that you guys are thinking about it. What about Golden Dome?
I'm not too familiar with Golden Dome.
Yeah, Golden Dome is like, I'm sure you heard the Iron Dome from Israel. It's basically a missile defense system to protect the country from inbound bogeys. This idea that the Trump administration has is like, let's call ours the Golden Dome and like protect the entire country from anything that could possibly come in from the sky. So there's a lot of space companies, from that aspect working on this issue. Like, what would that look like from a space-based defense? Is there a ground base, portion of this? Sensors, right? You name it. So more to follow. It's kind of just a term that's put out there as like a ubiquitous defense shield against airborne threats. So that's kind of what that's all about. But so nothing on Golden Dome, Mark, but I heard there's a conference this week in Huntsville, Alabama about it. I think it's this week, maybe it's next. So maybe we'll learn something from somebody that goes there. If you are, reach out to me. I'd like to learn more myself. But what's next for you guys? Like, there's so much out there, right? You said you have this quasi real live, if you will, demos with UCATs. You're thinking about counter UAS policy and how is that implemented in terms of SLTT. what else is out there on your plate, Marina, that we can expect to maybe learn or hear about from CNA in the next couple of months?
Yeah. One other issue that I think we kind of touched on throughout was supply chain. And
Oh,
so
yes.
yeah, and so actually this is some internal research that I mentioned before. So we're exploring how the impact of like tampered software on a drone could have an impact, and how you can identify that. So I think if you have software a drone you run out of the box and you have some software in there that's been tampered with, that can make the drone easier to attack. It could also, or take control of, it could also be sending data somewhere that you're unaware of. So we want to look at the components for the whole system. And we have a project where we're looking at analyzing the software details. So like there's metadata and there's hardware and software bill of materials for each of the drone manufacturers. And so we're looking at these lists and this data and integrating it into a proof of concept where we can scan all these data files from a particular drone, integrate them into a map that can actually like connect different information that's exchanged, and identify any vulnerabilities. And if you have a vulnerability, you can plan for remediation of it. So this is still a proof of concept, but we actually will be speaking on this, the results of this, at the National Homeland Security Conference in August this year. So keep an eye out for Ben Sugg's presentation on the results of that research that's going on now.
Yeah, definitely let me know about that too, Marina. I'd love to learn more and maybe even write about that one as well, or get something from your team. That's huge, right? Because I just saw DIU put out this um, assessors program for the Blue UAS, right? And one of the things that they're looking for is kind of a holistic team approach to allow third parties to review drones, right? Because they don't have the manpower to do it. It's been a huge backlog. We all know this. Yep. And one of the pieces is reverse engineering the hardware. Well, what you just talked about was like reverse engineering the software.
Yep.
That's significant. So you guys do that. I'm just saying this would be like an ideal opportunity to plug into one of these teams. I think there'll be an initial cohort selected, but then they'll continue to grow this assessor, third-party assessor. And by the way, fun fact, I'm nerding out now, is based on there was a statute that just became effective on June 6th called DIU. It's literally in law now, and it's called the multi-stakeholder MSP, multi-stakeholder provisions or something, that allows them to collaborate with these third parties to do this work on their behalf. So really, really cool. Lots of things in the mix. You guys are at the cutting edge in terms of cybersecurity, drone and UTM, traffic management, public safety considerations and counter UAS. I mean, I don't even know what you're not doing. It might have been easier just to say, what are you guys not working on? Well, okay, maybe Golden Dome, maybe.
Golden Dome.
So really, really cool. So we only have a couple minutes left. I knew our time would fly. It's been so cool to get this, understanding of what it is CNA is, what you do, some of the really cool projects you're working on right now, what you have on tap. In the last couple minutes that we have, Marina, what did I not ask you about? What did we not cover that you want to be sure to leave people with before we sign off today?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we talked about so many different topics.
Yeah.
I think that it's great to keep working together. And I think you're doing a great job here with bringing the community together and bringing up these questions, that are burning for the industry. And I really look forward to seeing the outcomes out of, future standards that are going out there. And if we can make sure that we all kind of come to an agreement on like how we can ensure cybersecurity and make sure that we're doing things in an efficient way. Really excited to see what's going to happen in the next couple of years with UTM. It's going to be really fast moving, and excited to see the expansion.
Yeah, absolutely. And fingers crossed, right? The beyond visual line of sight Part 108 rule, notice of public rulemaking to be specific, should drop, we hope, maybe next month. I am hearing it's 1,000 pages long, so that'll be some great bedtime reading. My guess is probably be like on the eve of 4th of July. There's always a holiday tie to this, right? Like let's drop it before like everybody's going to barbecues or like, New Year's Eve. So we'll see more about that. But how can people learn more about CNA or even just reach you, Marina, if they want to explore collaborations or partnerships?
Yeah, so we've got our website, CNA.org. There's a lot of contact information there for our Center for Data Management, Analytics, and Enterprise Systems Modernization. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find CNA at LinkedIn. We're the CNA org. Yeah, that's usually the best way.
All
Really
right,
excited.
awesome. Well, we'll be sure to keep an eye out on what's happening with CNA and definitely link in or link up with Marina and her team, whether in person or through some of these things that are happening. Next Friday, you will see an article about this show, so be sure to read that on Autonomy Global. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter, do it. And just other things coming up, everybody. We're going to continue Security Month. Next week will be Grand Sky, and they're going to have Blue Halo on with some of the things they're doing out there in North Dakota, which is really exciting in the security world. And just kind of off topic a little bit, but on topic in a way, the Urban Low Altitude Transport Association, Bourbon R, has been resurrected. Join us tomorrow night with Ron Leach, the new president, and some of the ultra experts talking about these executive orders and security, and grab your favorite beverage. You can find that information on my LinkedIn. I hope to see you all there. It's going to be a ton of fun. I'm looking forward to that. But Marina, thank you so much. Thanks, CNA. For all you do, and for everybody out there for your great comments and questions. We appreciate you. We are out here.